Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to my channel. We've got some more huge updates for seniors regarding stimulus checks for seniors, the next stimulus package, what's happening with the potential increase in Social Security benefits, and daily trending news as well. Of course, as always lately, we have some huge updates from Joe Manchin himself and what's going on with his decision as to whether or not to approve the package. So let's discuss the details, but before we jump into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this channel with anyone who you think might find this helpful. As always, this is a community for seniors, and my job here is to be a voice for you, be a voice for seniors, and make sure President Biden keeps his promises to increase Social Security benefits, increase SNAP benefits, increase SSI and ssdi, and even approve a stimulus check for seniors in this next stimulus package. So thank you so much for being a part of our community. I really appreciate your support. And if you really want to support my work, subscribe to my second channel. The link to that is going to be in the comments of this video, and the channel name is The Andrew Paulo Show. You could either click the link in the comments here or just search on YouTube The Andrew Paulo Show. That channel should come up for you right away. And on that channel, we're going to have some updates as well. But we're also going to play bingo. You can play bingo with me live. We're going to have a live chat, so you can chat with me, chat with the community. We're going to play other games like casino games, slot games, announce lottery winning ticket numbers. And we're also going to give away stimulus checks. So me and my wife, we're going to give away stimulus checks probably once a week at first. And then whoever watches my videos will be qualified to try and win those stimulus checks. So if you want to support our community, join a fun channel where we're going to play games and have a chance to win stimulus checks, subscribe to my second channel, and again, thank you so much to the 5,000 people who have already subscribed there. So with that said, folks, let's jump right into it. We've got some huge updates on the next stimulus package, Social Security changes, and stimulus checks for seniors. But before we talk about those details, let's do a quick update on daily trending news. Now, I've been doing a series where I talk about the best and worst states to retire in this country. And one that might surprise you is Hawaii. Hawaii, you would think, would be one of the best places to retire, right? It's nothing but beaches and sunshine, and it's basically between like 70 and 85 degrees year round. But this article says that Hawaii is actually the 18th worst state to retire in this country. So let's take a quick look and see what they said. The sandy beaches and blue skies of this lush tropical state is every retiree's dream, but you need to pay to live in paradise. Hawaii has long been ranked one of the most expensive states to live in. So obviously, although it's paradise, it is just way too expensive. Now, Zillow places the median home value in Hawaii at a whopping $683,000. So if you want to get a house in Hawaii, just basically the average price is over $600,000. And that's more than double what the national median is across the country. Now, you can easily end up paying $500,000 for a tiny one-bedroom condo if you want to live in Honolulu. So if you and your spouse are retired, you want to go live in Honolulu, just a tiny one-bedroom condo could cost you over $500,000. And when you're retired, one of the last things you want is a giant mortgage payment on a tiny little condo, right? Typically, you want to have your house paid off or just live somewhere with low rent. So there you have it, folks. Hawaii seems like a beautiful place to visit, beautiful place to retire, but it just is way too expensive. So let's jump right into today's update. Obviously, at this point, everybody knows Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors in this next stimulus package, and he said it's because seniors need extra help to pay for their medical expenses, but it would be a debit card that would be accepted anywhere Visa is accepted, which means you wouldn't have to actually use it on medical expenses. So that's good news. Now, of course, the Senate and the House are currently on vacation, which I don't know why they even get a vacation if they still have not gotten the stimulus package done, right? But in any case, they're going to be back on January 3rd. So next Monday, these blue colored dates here in January, that means the Senate is back in session. And then the very next week after that, the yellow colored dates, that means both the House and the Senate are both in session, right? And then the week after that, the green colored dates means only the House is in session. So why aren't they both in session all the time? They're constantly on vacation. They constantly get weeks off to go back to their home states and supposedly work over there with their constituents. But in any case, just to give you a quick update on what's going on, they'll be back next week. The Senate is going to try and work on the stimulus package. So let's be honest, we don't like it, but it's the truth. Joe Manchin basically decides whether or not seniors get stimulus checks, right? It's not all up to Joe Manchin, but he is the last remaining barrier in place to getting stimulus checks for seniors done. So essentially, we don't like it. I don't like it. But at this point, it feels like Joe Manchin decides, do seniors get stimulus checks or do they not? Of course, we have Bernie Sanders fighting to include them. So really, at the end of the day, it's really Bernie Sanders who's advocating for seniors. Bernie's almost like the leader of our community that we have here, fighting for seniors to increase benefits, fighting for seniors to do Social Security, stimulus checks for seniors. But at the end of the day, with everything happening right now, it feels like Joe Manchin is the one that gets to decide whether or not seniors get stimulus checks and if the stimulus package gets done quickly or not. And although Joe Manchin said he is completely done with the stimulus package, this stimulus package is dead, he immediately backtracked. So I want to make that clear to everybody here. Joe Manchin backtracked and he said the very next day, he said, you know what? We can still make it work if we make some changes, if we continue to lower the price of the bill. Now, mainly that's going to affect families with kids. Now, those monthly stimulus checks for families with kids are under strong attack from Joe Manchin. And he is saying that is the main thing causing inflation, right? Because you have families with 3, 4, 5 kids getting $300 per kid. A lot of families are getting over $1,000 a month during the pandemic, right? So all that extra money, they're using that money to buy a bunch of stuff. And some people think, including Joe Manchin, that it's making inflation even worse. So that is the main thing that's under attack. So there's probably going to be, most likely, those monthly child payments are either going to be completely taken out or they're going to be reduced, like cut in half or something like that, right? And the good news here is that would actually leave additional funding for the stimulus checks for seniors. So what's going on currently is Chuck Schumer said, you know what? If Joe Manchin doesn't want to vote for the stimulus package, let's bring it to a vote and make him say no. That way he is forced, Joe Manchin would be forced to vote no and then go back to West Virginia and tell his constituents, like, hey, I voted no to give you guys monthly stimulus checks. I voted no to give seniors a specific stimulus check for seniors. I voted no to expand Medicare to include hearing care for seniors. All of these things, he'll be forced to go back to West Virginia and tell his constituents in that state that he voted no for all of the stimulus. So that's currently Chuck Schumer's plan. Now, will that work? Quite honestly, I really don't think that's going to work. I think what it's going to take is genuine compromise to getting this deal done. Now, hopefully that compromise includes the stimulus check for seniors. Of course, we do have Bernie Sanders fighting to include that in that package. So there's still a really good chance that's going to happen. Now, when it comes to Social Security increases, that's probably going to end up in the next stimulus package in 2022. So we're probably going to have to wait a little bit longer in order to get those Social Security changes done. Now, let's talk about Joe Manchin, folks, and the fact that although he's a Democrat, whenever he kind of goes against Democrats, he tends to do better in the polls in West Virginia. So we kind of have this complicated situation with Joe Manchin where people in West Virginia, it's weird, they want stimulus checks for seniors. They want to expand Medicare. These things are very popular. Over half of people want these things. But then at the same time, whenever Joe Manchin opposes Democrats, his polls go up, right? And then there's also the fact that generally, most of the time, Joe Manchin does vote with Democrats, right? See, this article is titled that Joe Manchin's history suggested he would vote for the Build Back Better stimulus package, so why didn't he? Because until last week, Joe Manchin tended to side with his fellow Democrats on major questions of economic policy. So a lot of experts think that the fact that he's diverging from Democrats is kind of a temporary thing. It's helping him in the polls, but then eventually he's going to help Democrats get that done. So let's dive into these articles and see what the theory is. So first of all, Joe Manchin does better in the polls when he blocks Democrats. See, currently Joe Manchin has a 61% approval rating amongst registered voters in West Virginia, while he only has a 37% disapproval rating. That is really, really good in politics. Currently, Joe Biden has basically an opposite nationally. He has like a 40% approval rating and almost a 60% disapproval rating. And his ratings, Joe Manchin's ratings have actually gone up more and more the more he actually blocks the stimulus package from getting done, right? So he's kind of threading this needle where he's got a lot of Republicans in West Virginia. It's basically it is a Republican state. Donald Trump won that state in this last election by over 60%. So he's threading the needle where he has a lot of people who they get happy when he blocks things like the stimulus package, but then at the end, a lot of people want these things, right? Over half of people want all of these things in the stimulus package. If you see here, this article is titled, Joe Manchin turned his back on most of America when he blocked the stimulus package. Most Americans wanted this bill to pass. And this article is by Fox News. This isn't CNN or some liberal website. This is Fox News admitting that most Americans wanted the stimulus package to pass. Over half of Americans like the stimulus package, especially stimulus checks for seniors. So this is why some people are theorizing that what Joe Manchin wants to do is make things difficult, keep blocking Democrats so he can get higher and higher in the polls, kind of boost his numbers up to like 60, 65% approval rating, and then eventually cut a deal with Democrats because that's what he's known for. He usually agrees with Democrats, but make things difficult, make himself look better in the polls. And once his polls are up to like 60, 65%, he can compromise, get a deal done, and his polls will go down, but maybe down to like 55% or 50%, right? He's kind of playing this cat and mouse game where he's trying to appease Republicans in his state, but then also appease the Democrats that do want stimulus checks for seniors, right? That do want monthly stimulus checks for families, that do want to expand Medicare to include hearing care, right? And it's not just Republicans. I mean, I think certain parts of these bills, like the stimulus checks for seniors, I think Democrats and Republicans want these things. And folks, let me know in the comments if that's the case. If you're Republican or you're Democrat, let me know if you want the stimulus checks for seniors. Because quite honestly, I think if anything is going to be piecemeal, it should be the stimulus checks for seniors, right? Carve that out. Say, hey, we're going to do a $2,000 stimulus check for seniors. Do a standalone piecemeal deal. Approve that. Approve that package. Who is going to vote against that, right? Republicans should be on board for that, just like Democrats are on board, guys. And let me know in the comments if you agree. That shouldn't be a partisan issue, folks. Taking care of seniors who have paid taxes their entire life. I have seniors who have paid taxes on my channel for 30, 40, 50 years in the comments telling me, Andrew, I'm 90 years old. I've paid taxes for 50 or 60 years. Now Social Security is giving me $1,000 a month. It's completely ridiculous, right? So this is something that should be able to get done one way or another, right? Even if it's not part of the big package, they should do a standalone bill just for seniors, guys. And let me know in the comments if you agree. But in any case, this is a current theory that people are talking about. Potentially, Joe Manchin is making things difficult because he knows it always makes him do better in the polls. It increases his numbers. And then once they're increased high enough, he can cut a deal with Democrats. His numbers will go down a little bit, but they will have been boosted so high that he'll still be in a good place. And then he'll also make Democrats in his state really, really happy by approving more stimulus, like stimulus checks for seniors and monthly stimulus checks for families. So this is what currently is going on, folks. Of course, then we have liberal Democrats like Bernie Sanders and Jayapal, which is the representative from Washington, who are so frustrated with Joe Manchin. They keep putting pressure on him, trying to convince him to get the package done. But quite frankly, it doesn't seem to be working too well. And it looks like what it's going to take is going to be a genuine compromise. And quite honestly, more of a compromise in the direction of what Joe Manchin wants, right? So we're hoping to get some things like the stimulus check for seniors, monthly checks for families, things like that. Hopefully these things will make it in the package when Joe Manchin gets everything else that he wants. So with Congress on vacation this week, there's not a ton of news, but we have some interviews from people like Bernie Sanders and Representative Jayapal who talking about the fact that they're going to continue to work with Joe Manchin to try and get the stimulus package done. They're going to keep fighting. They're going to explore other options like having President Biden use executive order to try and get some things done on his own, maybe doing some piecemeal deals to cut some things out and approve those separately. So they're kind of exploring what their options are and how they can convince Joe Manchin to get this stimulus package done. And we should have a lot of updates in the next couple of weeks, so don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you posted as things develop on the next stimulus package, stimulus checks for seniors, and Social Security changes as well. So to end this video, I'm going to leave you with a clip from Representative Jayapal discussing all of these things that we just laid out. And if you want to stick around, let's take a look, see what Representative Jayapal had to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.
Let's bring into the conversation now one of the central players in the effort to craft this Build Back Better deal. Washington Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal is chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. In that role, she has led progressives in the House in their many negotiations with, among other people, Senator Manchin and the White House. I should tell you, Congresswoman Jayapal and Senator Manchin also spoke directly by phone this morning. The senator called her, and she took his call. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, official optimist of the Rachel Maddow Show. Thank you for joining us on what is a hard day to be the perpetual optimist.
It is really true, but I'm not giving up the role. But you know, I always tell you the truth, and I think the truth needed to be told here, Rachel, which was that Senator Manchin did make a commitment to the president on the framework that the president, unveiled to us the day before he went to COP. And that framework, Rachel, would never have happened had the Progressive Caucus in the House not stood up and refused to pass the infrastructure bill until we got that framework, and then until we got the legislative text. But I do believe that Senator Manchin has said many things. And look, he's a nice man. I have had good conversations with him. But I had to be clear that your word is everything around here. You can't enter into negotiations if you are not going to be an honest negotiator, and if you are not going to keep your word to the President of the United States. The President told me that Senator Manchin committed to that framework, and if there were things that weren't matching that framework, then you wouldn't go on Fox News the Sunday before Christmas and make a case that the Build Back Better Act is done and that it's reshaping the country in a way that is untruthful, frankly, but is reshaping the country in a way that's not beneficial for the American people. Rachel, we are in the midst of COVID. I think you're sitting in New York somewhere where Omicron is hitting hard. And the Build Back Better Act is about making sure we have elder care so that when people are suffering from COVID, they can be taken care of at home. It is about making sure we reduce the premiums for people to be able to get health care coverage in a country where I agree with Senator Sanders. We are the writers of the Medicare for All bill. We should have a different system, but at least we should bring down the costs of being able to get health care for people. The Build Back Better Act is about making sure we pay $35 for insulin instead of hundreds and hundreds of dollars or driving across the Canadian border. It is about making sure that we give people the ability to have childcare in a time when we've had a she-cession. Women have been pushed out of the economy and they're waiting. So these are real people. And the child tax credit, which is now not going to go out in January or February or probably March, means that millions of Americans are now going to be pushed back into poverty. So yes, it is a tremendous frustration because we all thought we were negotiating in good faith. And the optimist in chief of the Rachel Maddow Show says that the things that we are working on are hard. They are. If they were done, if they were easy, they would be done. They're not. They're hard, and we can't give up, and we won't give up. And that's why we will pursue a two-track strategy now to both push for the Build Back Better legislation to pass the Senate, and we are also calling on the president to take some significant executive actions that will make people's lives better today, and that will also put pressure on continuing to get legislation through instead of doing it through executive action. So we'll have a two-track process here. We're not giving up, but it's a hard day, I'll be honest.